This podcast contains potentially adult language, adult themes, definitely drinking, and possibly sexual context. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Drinking with Authors, the podcast. I am your host, Erica Lance. Co-hosting with me today is the amazing, intrepid J.M. Paquette. And our guest today is Steve Altier. Yay! Woo! Let's talk about what we're drinking. So I decided to put coffee with cream and Bailey's in my cup this morning like an adult, because we're recording pretty early. I don't know if that's a White Russian or a, anyway, I just made up a drink. I'm just saying words now. Anyway, Jan, what are you drinking that's non-alcoholic and boring?
I have chamomile tea in a Nightmare Before Christmas mug for the season.
So literally the most boring tea you could possibly drink.
It's good.
So great. Okay, boring. Okay, Steve, what are you drinking?
I have a Coors Light, traditional, and I also have a little bit of water with me as well.
Oh, we're adulting. I see that now. Between the chamomile tea and the water, this is an adulting podcast at this point.
Hydration is important.
Hydration is important. I love that. Okay. So, Steve, for the people out there that don't know you, what do you write?
I mainly write paranormal, mystery, suspense. I also have a couple of middle grade chapter books, great for the 5 to 8 year old range.
Very cool. Very cool. So when did you begin this writing journey?
It was actually something that I wanted to do from back in high school as a young adult. But, unfortunately, things kind of change in life. You kind of takes you down a different path. And it never really happened for me until after my children were all gone. So I started writing again, and it's just been that way ever since. Probably about 13, 14 years now. I've been writing, been published for about 8 years.
Wow, very cool. So high school, what were you writing in high school? I'm sure it was riveting, because all of our high school work is the best work that was ever written in the entire world, because we really knew what was happening.
Well, in high school, it was kind of boring. I wanted to be a journalist. That's what I really wanted to be, was someone who would bring the news to people, write for the newspaper, write for television programs, whatever. But that was my passion, was to be a journalist, and it never really happened. I often look back and wonder, if I would have stayed with that, what would have happened?
So what did you end up doing as an adult to do adulting, since you got steered off the journalism path?
Well, a couple of unfortunate events happened for me, and then I ended up deciding to change my life. I joined the military. I was in the United States Air Force.
Very cool. Thank you for your service.
Oh, well, thank you. It was something that actually I needed. It was something that helped me get back on the right path. No one likes to admit it, but, it was the late 1970s, and, you get into a little bit of drugs and alcohol and things like that, and it can change your whole life forever. So it's time to grow up, and I used the military for that purpose.
That's very cool. Very cool. My daughter's in the Army, so I think that is awesome.
Well, thank you
She's
for
a combat medic. Oh. So no scary times for parents there. Jen, were you about to ask something?
I was going to ask if while you were there, did you continue to write like a little bit, or did it just kind of leave your life?
Well, I was actually stationed in the Philippine Islands for 3 years. We worked 6-7 days a week, 12 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
It did not leave a lot of time for following a dream. And then after, I got married, had children, and devoted myself to them, and, making sure I had provided a living for my family, and spent most of my time trying to take care of my family, my wife, my daughter. I have 3 lovely daughters and 1 stepdaughter.
Very cool. So you write paranormal mystery. I love mystery writers, because I think that is a whole entire skill set not a lot of people have, to write truly a good mystery, even if it's for younger people or all the way up, because I think there's so much you have to lead with where you don't give it all away, but you eventually get there, but you give enough that people think that they had some part of the whodunit, kind of situation. What made you decide to go that genre?
Well, originally I started writing middle grade chapter books. So the first story I wrote was a story about We Can't Move at Christmas. It's the siblings. They were 6 and 8-year-old siblings. They found themselves moving at Christmas time. Father comes home and he lets the kids know that, hey, we're going to be moving cross country at Christmas time. And they're like, no, this can't happen. We've already written our letters to Santa Claus, so he's not going to find us. I mean, what are we going to do?
That is awesome.
The father reassures his children that, that we have, Santa's got this elite group of elves called the Family Moving Department. And they track kids moving all over the world, any time of the year. So don't worry, he's going to find you. It was a great story. I'd written a couple of other books in that. But to answer your question, which was a lot of lead up to that question.
No, it's good. Let's go. We can go the whole route, all the way around.
So I was at a Barnes & Noble doing a book signing for the third book in the Gabby Maddox Adventure series. And there was a couple of boys that came up. They were like 9, 10, 11-year-old boys. And they're like, this is kid stuff, baby stuff. What do you have for us? And I was like, nothing really. They were on that verge of, teen tweens. And I just that's it. I wanted to step my game up, write for a little more of the older kids, the teenagers. And I was talking with a friend of mine one day, and they said, how many people can say they grew up in Lizardville? Now, Lizardville is a small Pennsylvania town, right in the middle of the state. It's actually called Mill Hall, but there's an area called Lizardville Road where I grew up at. It's about 500 people live there. And that's when I decided to write my childhood stories.
Oh, wow. Did you base them off your experiences there?
Absolutely. So in 1904, can people see us or?
Yeah, they can totally see us. Show things.
Okay. I don't have, hold on, just 1 second.
1 sec, no worries.
When I do a lot of book events, I show this to people. So I got this picture. Can you see it well?
Oh, yeah.
This is an old axe factory and an old dam. This picture I got from the Pennsylvania Historical Society, and that was taken in 1904.
Wow.
In the late 1950s, the place was destroyed by a flood. And there's a house right up here. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the old damkeeper's house. In 1969, my parents bought that. And that's where I grew up. So we grew up, and here's a picture of me with my books. I don't know if you can see it. It's along Lizardville Road.
Oh, wow.
And the sign up there at the top says Lizardville.
Yeah.
I'm blocking the camera when I do that, so I don't know if it was.
No, it's totally fine. No, you can see it. I hope you stole that street sign. Although we don't advocate for crime on this show, but I would have totally stolen that street sign. Not advocating for crime. Not sure who's listening right now. I might get arrested after this.
Next time I go up there, I'll have to try to do that.
Yeah, exactly. But not because we said so, but I still think it's a cool idea. The host does not advocate for thievery, but Erica absolutely does. I think that's a really good idea. That it had to be, how weird was that living in that house though?
It was, I mean, as kids, we used to go out along the banks of Big Fishing Creek, which was what it was called. It's the old axe factory. There was remnants of the axe factory there. The foundations were still there. So we used to go out there and just play, camp, fish. We've had encounters with bears, porcupines, all kind of strange things. But I started to write my childhood experiences out, and it was missing something. So I was talking with a couple of guys that called me one day. They were asking me, so I guess you're writing this story. Are you going to bring in part of the white monkey? And I'm like, the what? The white monkey. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, where are you guys at? And they're like, well, we're down here at the Linger Inn, which is a bar up there. And I'm like, oh, no wonder it's 12 o'clock on a Sunday. You guys are already at the tavern. So no wonder you're seeing white monkeys, But no, there's an old legend up there that the owner of the axe factory in the early 1900s used to go to Africa. He used to bring monkeys back, which he kept as pets, but they still haunt the woods.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't want to steal that because that's kind of a legend around there. So I had to come up with my own. And I was like, you know what? But the paranormal aspect really intrigued me. So that's what I decided to do.
That sounds like so much fun. It's interesting that you base it. Like I'm even just sitting here, you keep saying axe factory, and I'm like, they had an entire factory dedicated to axes. Like, we don't think about it now the same way. Obviously, there's car factories or whatever, but to think there was an entire factory dedicated to making axes and that was so important back then that a whole factory needed to do that.
Well, they used to cut the wood down. They would float it down the creek. And I'm sorry if I'm bending over. My cat is nipping at my legs here. It's like, of course, the minute I get on a podcast, that's when
that's okay. We had a cat knock over a laptop on a podcast. It was like the best thing ever. Whoa, look at that. That's not a little person. That is a hefty cat right there.
Okay.
Wow.
Hi, everybody.
What's the kitty's name?
That is Boots. She originally we got her, not to go on that.
Go for it. We go everywhere. We drink on the show. It's fine.
She actually is in a couple of my stories. In the first Christmas story, the mom and dad wanted to distract the children because they were panicked about Christmas so much, they went out and got her a kitten.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
And it was Boots in my stories that I've adapted in there. So she's my writing buddy. She's always been here with me when I'm writing. And I called her Boots because that's what the guy told us when we got her as a kitten. He said, here's a boy. His name's Boots. It was a girl. So
that person shouldn't be in charge of kitties. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. Okay.
She wants her beer.
Axe Factory. We're talking about Axe Factory. And then so they used to cut. It's okay, she can interrupt. It's fine. As long as she doesn't push her computer over, everybody's gonna find it adorable. So growing up there, because it looks like that oversaw a lot. What was the first paranormal part you added in? Was that something like that you felt you kind of experienced and expanded on, or legends? What did you do there?
Get down. Well, to answer your question, the kids go out on a weekend camping trip and they're out along the banks of Big Fishing Creek, and there's these oversized crows that constantly are following them, haunting them, swooping down on them, trying to distract them from what they're doing. And they're like, what is up with these? I've never seen crows this size before. So the oldest boy, sorry, she's trying
No worries.
The oldest boy, he starts to gather the kids around the campfire in the evening, and he tells them the legends of the Axe Factory murders, and that wakes up the spirit world.
Oh.
So crazy things start to happen after that. Jimmy wakes up in the middle of the night. He goes out to hide behind a tree for a minute and go to relieve himself. And all of a sudden, there's a beautiful woman, and he's like, who are you? This is Annabelle. And he's like, I've got to be dreaming. I've just got to be dreaming. Like this can't be real. And I just started adding more paranormal elements to the story. It ended up becoming a 2-book series. I did not go with a third. There was such a great response on Goodreads to the story, and a lot of questions about it, that I had to come back with a second story. But together they've won 5 literary awards, and twice it appeared in National Magazine, Story Monsters Inc. So I was really pleased with the results of that.
And you didn't want to do a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 10th? Like, how do you not want to get that kind of a feel? Go, you know what? I have more paranormal stories. Let me write about haunted bears. Tick, 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 tick.
I actually have a spin-off story. So when I was writing the second book, Lizardville, Jimmy's Curse, the kids are at the library. They're trying to do their research. They're looking for ways to put these spirits back where they belong. And they find a couple of books written by a young author named Gerald Dupickle. That's right, Dupickle. And I was like, I love the name. And so I eventually came back and wrote Gerald Dupickle's story.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
He became a ghost hunter and his adventures, which was my newest release, which came out September 7th this year. And we hit number 87 on the Amazon bestseller list for 1 week anyway. It's still
Right.
doing good in the young adult ghost stories.
Well, that is awesome. That is very, very cool. Okay, so the question I have to ask is, do you believe in ghosts?
I have I've been invited to a lot of ghost hunts. I was at a place in Illinois called the McPike Mansion, and everyone there says it's haunted. So my wife grew up in the St. Louis area, and that's what we were up there one day, and we were driving by, and I said, I want to stop. I want to see it. And she goes, well, we can't stop there. They don't do tours. It's just a place that's off limits, and the people that own it live next to it. And I said, well, just pull in. I want to look around a little bit. I had my youngest daughter with me at the time. She was like 19 or 20. So we stopped, got out of the car. My wife's like, no, don't go up there. So we walked up, and then this woman came out of the house next door, and she's like, can I help you guys? I'm like, well, I'm here from Florida. I've heard this place was haunted. I write paranormal mystery suspense. And she's like, let me get the keys. I'll take you in. So when we, yeah,
I'm telling you, being an author can open so many doors when you're like, hi, I write true crime. And then all of a sudden the FBI profilers are like, let me tell you everything about true crime. Right?
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
So we go in, she explains it. There's some burial grounds in the back of the house. The place is really spooky, but we were down in the basement, and she said they do some tours around Halloween. You know, they gather some groups down there for seances and things like that. But we were down in the basement, and I was looking around the boiler room. I'm filming with my daughter there. I'm talking, and you know, looks just really spooky, really scary. We saw nothing. So when I played it back and uploaded it to YouTube, if you go onto my YouTube page and look at it, you can see late into the thing, there's a couple of things that come floating around and just wiggle around, and then they're gone.
Oh, wow.
And she was telling me that the woman that runs the McPike Mansion, she said they are orbs, and they actually live there. They are the ghost. And she's like, so they visited you, they were intrigued with what you were doing, talking about, and they came out to meet you and see you. But they weren't there when we recorded. I swear, they were not there. So to answer your question, I think I have.
That makes sense. No, that makes, I mean, it's ghost lore is very interesting. I was talking to somebody the other day about it because, you know, some people, I think are obviously more sensitive than other people to, you know, paranormal stuff like that. But it's very easy. Like I have a friend that's very, very sensitive to this stuff, but her husband is an absolute non-believer. So something can happen. Like something falls right off a shelf. Like, no, it doesn't make sense. Scoots falls off the shelf. He'll be like, the wind blew that. It's a statue on a shelf in a room with closed windows, but the fan managed to blow this off the shelf. It's very funny. And if you talk to him, he's like, the fan blew it off the shelf. And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's not even science. That doesn't even make sense. That's not how gravity works. But okay, whatever you say. Oh my gosh, that's very cool. I love that you threw the author card out and they're like, yo, come see the haunted place. Come in the basement. I just want to say how many stories probably don't end well that start with me and my daughter were down in the boiler room basement of a haunted place that has a graveyard out back. Usually that doesn't end well as a story. Like that's not something like if that was Stephen King, you absolutely would not have survived that little situation.
My daughter probably would have. I would have probably been the one who got killed, you know.
The heroic sacrifice.
Yes.
Got her up the stairs.
Yes. Dad, you're older than me. Take him.
Well, we see where your daughter's at on that. Hey, go. I'm going to run. I'm going to outrun you. I have a joke always that you don't have to outrun your enemies. You just have to outrun your friends. Yeah. This is my theory that you do not have to outrun the bad guy. If you have people in your group, you can outrun because, you know, eventually it takes some time. Oh my goodness. Okay. We have to take a quick break and we will be right back with Drinking with Authors.
Sample locally sourced, quality distilled spirits in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge. At Skunk Brothers Distillery, we're family-owned, brewing small batch grain-to-bottle spirits, just like our grandfather did back in the Prohibition era. From handcrafted bourbons and moonshine to flavored blends and cordials infused with local fruit. Join us for a tasting tour and buy Skunk Brothers spirits straight from the source.
It's all in the family at Skunk Brothers Spirits, located in Stevenson, Washington.
I like that you just said busting out the loose leaf, as if it's like a 12-step thing to put loose leaf tea
Way more
in a teacup.
steps than just a bag in the hot water. Okay.
You're the one that keeps buying loose leaf tea.
I love loose leaf tea. Just not today.
Okay, whatever. Okay, moving on. So, I love still in the basement and it doesn't end well. I have a question. What do you like to read?
Stephen King's one of my favorite. I've read a ton of his work. Right now, I'm just started reading The Six of Crows. I really enjoy young adult fantasy. My daughter read that. She was like, "Dad, you've got to read this one." So I just started the series, and I mean, she bought me the books as a gift, and I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to read them." But
That's how I ended up reading the Twilight books, just for the record, because a friend of mine bought me the books. And I felt obligated.
Did you watch the show? Did you watch the show that goes, because Six of Crows and Shadow and Bone and all of that is?
It's on Netflix, and I've refused to watch it until I've read the books. So I've already ordered and have the Shadow and Bone series or book here, the first one. So I was kind of waiting to see what was going on with Six of Crows. I don't know if there's any particular order they should be read in, except
The books are separate, but the show just put it all together.
okay.
So, well, there's that now. Spoiler alert, Jen, giving it away for everybody. Whatever. Shadow and Bone was pretty impressive, though, the TV show. I haven't read the books yet.
I do have the book sitting over here. It's on my to-do list, but it's hard always trying to find that time to, balance between reading, writing, marketing, everything that we have to do as an author these days.
So are you self-published then?
I am independently published, as I like to refer to it as, yes.
Okay, well, sorry, did not mean to offend with the independently published. Correct me in the future, Jen, as I am drinking Bailey's and I say the word self-published. Obviously, I did offend. So what made you decide that route?
Well, I sent out numerous Googles.
You sent out the Googles to everybody. Everybody got the Googles. Ooh, one beer. You're fun. Okay.
But so no, I sent out tons of query letters, and there was a book I read called The Ghostwriter, and it was written by Alessandra Torre. She's a New York Times bestselling author, and I left a review for her online because I just was fascinated with the story. She's mainly a romance writer, and she writes. She's traditionally published, and she does some independent publishing as well. But she has a writers conference she was doing in Dallas. So I had written a nice review about the book, but just not the type of book I would normally read, a romance type mystery book. I love the story. The line was great. She's a phenomenal writer. And she told me, why don't you come out to my conference? I'm putting it on in Dallas. So, I mean, I thought at first the invite was going to be, like, hey, join us for free, but not really. But I did, there was a local event here in Tampa that it was a writing contest, an essay contest, and I won $1,000. I won first place, won $1,000 to go to that, because what I wanted to do was enhance my writing career. So the $1,000 I put toward going to the conference in Dallas, and it just was a game changer for me, to meet so many authors that some of them were traditionally published, a lot of New York Times bestsellers, Jennifer Probst, Helen Hart, just a lot of big names there in the industry. And, you meet friends that you're going to have for life now, and they've all been very helpful to me. And they tell me the same thing. Throw your query letters out there. If you don't get anything back on it. Don't worry about it. Just continue to build your following on social media, continue to grow, and go the independent route. So that's what I've been doing. It's working for me. I keep trying to get published. There are a lot of small independent publishing houses that I would love to hook up with. Unfortunately, some of them, like I ran into one that they just wanted me to put up thousands and thousands of dollars up front. And you have to beware of those. They're scams.
Yeah, I was gonna say no true publisher. We run a small publishing company, and we can talk about that offline. Well, I wouldn't say very small. We're up to like 300 titles now in the last 2 years. But we, this was part of the reason we started what we started, is because there's a lot of what they call those vanity presses. Like, you're paying to get your book published, but they're also not marketing it. Like in even normal publishers, there's a degree of marketing any author needs to do, because we're in a time where technology is a conversation piece, and you have to be willing to have the conversations. You have to be willing to interact with fans. Like you can't, I do make the analogy all the time. You can't sit up on the mountain in a cabin and never talk to people and be that writer. You're not allowed to do that anymore. You have to talk to people. You have to be willing to go to conventions and stuff like that. But you should have a publishing house that actually can sort of put their money where their mouth is, and is transparent about what it takes, and wants to support the authors that they work with. And if anybody asks you for money up front, and I'm just saying this to everybody listening, it is a resounding no. I don't care what came around that money conversation, but if a publisher ever asks you for any money up front, any at all, run. That is not a publisher you want to be with, period, because it just doesn't support the whole arts thing. It just doesn't work that way. And it's smart that you didn't go down that route at all.
Well, I'm not saying I didn't, because I did on the first book.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's smart that you learned the lesson and didn't keep repeating that.
Well, it's just like, I guess it really hit me when the book came out. There was the lack of editing that was done. I'm like, okay. The first thing, I had some friends of mine, the one's a college professor, and she came back and said, this is horrible. So, she helped me rewrite it. And then we took it off the market. I independently published it myself. But what grabbed my attention was a few months into the book that was put out, the first one, which was We Can't Move at Christmas. The publisher called me, and the guy says on the phone, I've got you an interview with the New York Times. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
He goes, yep, they want your story. So just let me know. I'll run your credit card, $6,000 you're on. Like, what? You want $6,000? I have to pay them. Well, of course you do. Everybody has to pay them. Like, no. And the first thing he said to me was, I thought you wanted to be taken seriously. And I'm like,
wow.
What? I'm like, no. He called me back a few days later. My boss is willing to split it with you. So just $3,000 will do it. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it.
Wow, that's disgusting.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I sent him an email then. I said, here's what do I need to do to end this? So I took it off the market. I rewrote the book, published it under Create Space at the time. And I was like, that was that.
Wow. That's fucking horrible. Sorry, words, but that is absolutely terrible.
I felt like I was just being ripped off the whole time at that point. I was like, no, this $6,000 is a lot of money.
Yeah, no, you were being ripped off. Like New York Times, yes, there are things you have to do to get on New York Times or USA best-selling list. There are absolutely things you have to do to do that. And they can cost you money, but they cost you money knowing directly to the actual how they go about it. Like there's this whole submission to be reviewed as a New York Times bestseller. That's why I'm not a huge fan of that. Yeah, it's got some marketability that, Erica Lance is a New York Times bestseller, but I also go, I shouldn't have to pay my sales statistics should tell you by X amount that I am a bestseller. That's a whole bizarre thing, which is just stupid to me. Oh my goodness. Well, let's talk about your fans a little bit. So you obviously had fans that came up and were like, you need to write a book that I want to read. I love that. It's came up to your booth and we're like, this is cute. So you're gonna write something for me. What's it been like? Because you have a younger group, not only younger people read your books, but I mean, just saying that you have a younger crowd. What's it like interacting with fans like that?
It's amazing. I mean, you spend most of your time cooped up in a room like this writing. To get out and meet fans is probably the best feeling in the world. You know, my wife gets tired of me talking about my stories with her. I mean, and I don't blame her because I just bore her to death with them over and over and over. But getting out, one of the things I learned when I went to Dallas was you got to find your niche. You got to stay in your lane, find out what's working for you and what's not. And someone said, maybe I should try a Comic-Con. They said, your books have these catchy pictures on them. They would appeal to that crowd. And we went to one Comic-Con and we've done pretty good. And from that point on, I've been just sticking with that crowd. And we've been traveling around the Southeast now, and we've been up into Atlanta. We're down all over Florida. It's phenomenal to get out and talk with people. And some of them have come back to different events I've been. I was at an event in Lakeland last year or 2 years ago, and a guy came up to me when I did Sci-Fi Bartow, which is a small event over the streets in Bartow. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Oh yeah, no, we were there last year. I love Sci-Fi Bartow. I think it's there's so many people that come out to Sci-Fi Bartow.
Well, and I love it because it's a free event. So if you can't really afford to go to a Comic-Con, that's one that you could go to and enjoy.
Yes.
It's more family friendly. So we were there, and this guy comes up and he says to me, so you're Steve, I found you finally. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm here. And he goes, so my niece wanted me to stop and pick up your newest book. She told me it was out, but she had some sort of engagement to go to this weekend and she couldn't be here. I'm like, okay, so here's my newest book. And he goes, she's gonna love it. And I said, you want me to autograph it and personalize it to her? And he goes, yeah, sure. She'll love it. I said, what's her name? Well, I have a nickname for her. And I said, no, what's her real name? He's like, I don't know. Let me call her. He didn't even know his niece's name.
Oh my goodness.
I'm laughing. I'm like, this is crazy. But so anyway, those are the moments that touch me real deep in my heart. They really do. Those are phenomenal moments. I'd also met another guy at one event. He came back and he goes, hey, I saw you here last year. I wanted to pick up your new book. Those are moments that really it's hard to describe. It gives you just that I'm doing this for a reason, and they love it, and that's what makes me happy.
No, I think that's phenomenal because we write because we love writing, but I think it's that impact that we can have on somebody, whether it's to make them laugh or sometimes cry or sometimes be terrified or sometimes put themselves into the character and want to be that character, and want to have those adventures. I think that's phenomenal when you can have that effect. So now that you went down this first path and you saw the editing was terrible, do you now have a whole methodology for editing and beta readers and all of that stuff?
Oh, absolutely. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to go to a major writing conference. It changed everything for me. So I have, when I'm done writing my manuscript, I go chapter by chapter. I read it, I rewrite it, I print it, I read it again, I give it to my wife. When we're happy with it, we go to another professional editor. She does about 4 rounds of editing on it. Then it goes to a slew of proofreaders. And it's just amazes me how these mistakes sometimes they hide and they get overlooked time and time again.
We run into that all the time. It doesn't matter how many people we have look at a manuscript. I mean, and you see that with huge names out there too. Yeah. You brought up Stephen King, but I mean, he has a whole thing on his website to report errors in books because he's like, tell me about them, because they're going to happen. No matter what you do, you're going to have errors, just because you could have 50 people read your book and there'd still be that one, wasn't spelled, it was spelled TEH, just because everybody was anticipating it was there.
Yep. No, I'm a perfectionist. My wife thinks I'm kind of crazy that way, anal that way, to throw in an adult word.
Hey, you're on an adult podcast. You can throw in all the adult words you want to.
No, I mean, I just strive for perfection. I think that's what's in somebody. I'd done an interview with a guy in the Midwest. He told me on his podcast, he said, that's what's going to make you great, by striving for perfection. I don't like reading a book that's got a slew of errors in it. It just bothers me. I had one author, she wrote a story. She sent me her book. She says, this is my first book. I would love to know what you think of it. I'm like, okay, I'll let you know. It was a vampire romance story, something right after the Twilights were very popular. She's trying to jump in on that trend. The first 2 pages, she used the word beautiful 5 times. And it was a turnoff. It's like, oh, this beautiful guy walked into the bar. He was so beautiful. He had a beautiful this, beautiful that. I'm like, okay, I'm already done.
Find another word.
Yes, exactly. I mean, when I get stuck for a word, I hit Google, what's another word for, and because I see it sometimes in my own writing. I'll be like, why did I use that here? Why did I use it there? Which is why I want so many proofreaders. And my final 2 proofreaders are both college professors. So they both do it for me as friends. They teach literature, and phenomenal group of people that I have behind me anymore. And that, I think that's part of the success, finding the right team, the right people to work with. Now, if I could find the right publishing house to be with, I might really be able to make it in this business.
Totally. Absolutely. So, I think that's great. Jen's a professor of English literature, so she can tell you, thing. But what's interesting is, as a writer, I'm sure she'll love to talk about this too. As a writer, it's different than when you're on the other side of that screen.
Absolutely. I mean, I get my stuff, I edit, all the time. I'm reading other people's words, but in my own, I leave really, my problem is my characters nod constantly. They're always nodding and shrugging. That was my other thing. So my beautiful is nod and shrug, and I don't see it until someone else is like, hey, you realize that, in this chapter, you 52 of these. So you just need somebody who doesn't live in your brain to point out those things. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's fine. You know what I meant, you'll get the picture. I'm like, but there are so many other books I could be reading. I don't want to have to, as a reader, take the time to know what you mean. There's somebody else standing behind you who could tell me the same story, but without errors, and I'm going to read them. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, and that it makes a huge difference. It does, absolutely. So what do you think your what is your writing Achilles heel that your editor goes, don't do this? I know a lot of us develop new ones every book that we do. We're like, no, we're on top of this nodding, shrugging thing. That's not happening anymore. But everybody absolutely is beautiful in this book.
Very beautiful, always.
Well, I think one of my Achilles heels is showing and telling. So it's something I've identified several years ago. We talk about it every time. I have a whole slew of cheat sheets here that I've made up for myself. If you're trying to do this, how can I, show that versus telling it? And they always tell me this, you can tell a story, but to show a story is what's the difference between great writers and good writers. So it's something I have been working on. I know I've been with the same editor now for this is our 4th book together. She tells me over and over that, what you're doing is great. She goes, you just continue to grow. Your stories get better. That's always encouraging. Maybe she tells me that because I'm paying her. I don't know, but I always tell her, I want your honesty. That's all I care about is honesty, and she's pretty brutal sometimes, like especially the first round of drafts. So, we work on the story, the flow of it, everything like that before we even get into looking at grammar and punctuation stuff. Because I am not a literary professor or someone like that. I follow more the Stephen King rule. Throw it up on the paper. There's editors that can help you get it to where it needs to be.
No, that totally
a blank page is what he always said.
No,
You need
absolutely.
something there to work with.
Exactly. You know, I
And
think
that's what the difference between a developmental editor is and somebody who is editing for like tenses and commas and periods and grammar. You know, developmental editors can absolutely help authors with their stories and stuff like that. Bailey's early in the day. It's fine. Did you see I said that as a whole sentence? I'm very proud of myself right now. So you write a book for somebody. Have you stopped doing that now, or do you still, if people reach out to you, do you still read for them? Where are you at? Because I know a lot of authors don't do that anymore.
do what?
Read other people's stories that they ask them to.
I have a large stack of books over here to read. It's hard because I still have a day job. You know, you need to have something that pays the bills. And right now, our company is short-staffed. We're trying to, you know, find people, qualified people to help do the job, and it's difficult.
Oh, yes. I do HR for a day job, for the record. So, I know what it's like out there right now.
Yeah.
COVID has changed so many things about the world.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm close. To me, 2020 was supposed to be my breakout year. We had events lined up from Savannah to Atlanta, even into Birmingham. And then the world came to an end. Everything was postponed or canceled. And some of it, like even Savannah this year, canceled on me. So I don't know if it's going to happen next year or not. I think that the promoter is in trouble financially, and just, I don't even know if I'm going to get my money back on that one. But those were things I paid for in 2019, 2018. But I mean, anymore, I'm picked up more as a guest. So that helps me a lot.
Very cool.
But
Did COVID affect you as a writer, like, you know, isolated, where do you write out in public and then you couldn't anymore? Like, how did it affect your habits?
well, actually, it helped me because our company let everybody go. We were all laid off for 13 weeks. And that helped me get my newest story done, because I focused most of my day trying to be what I considered myself. Okay, this is my chance to be a professional writer. So I would get up in the morning, I would write in the mornings, I would do my household chores. So when my wife came home from work, she didn't have to do them. And I would spend my afternoons, you know, marketing. So it was really a great break for me. It helped me grow. I really want to get back to that, where I can stay at home, do this for a living. That's the challenging part, you know, is when to cut the cord and when to go for it. I love getting out on the weekends now. We've done several events this past summer. A lot of the events were jammed back to back. We did Tampa Comic-Con, we did Atlanta the following week. We had a week off. We were over in Orlando, then we were down in Sarasota. I mean, we just bounced all over the place. So to me, that's the life I want to live, where I'm out there on the weekends with the fans, spending my week writing. But no, to answer your question, I mean, I think COVID helped me to realize where I wanted to be. Do you have the discipline to write every day? Yes, I do. Right now, I'm coming home from work after 8, 10, 12-hour day sometimes, and I'm exhausted, you know, trying to do 2 or 3 people's jobs. And, you know, then you end up going to bed early. I mean, sometimes I haven't even had time to read lately, and it upsets me. You know, it's just, it's like it's another step back, because they let so many people go, and now we can't get people to come back.
That I understand. Okay. So here as we're coming near the end of this particular episode, that went by really, really fast. Let's talk a little bit about advice you would give to authors out there who are listening. What advice would you give?
Well, I actually, when I do a panel at a lot of Comic-Cons, there's 6 secrets to writing.
Okay.
And authors. And I think the first thing, there's a lot of authors that I have met that they think like another author is, I think my biggest thing is authors need to help authors. Okay.
Yes.
We're here for each other. I mean, as an avid reader, there is no way that you could write enough books to keep me reading all year long. So I'm going to buy another author's books. So I'm not a threat to you. You know, if I buy your book, I can buy their book and the next book from somebody else. You know, if there's so many people that read one book a week, that means 52 books. How many books can you write in a year? You can't. You can't write that many books in a year. You're lucky if you get 2 or 3 books done in a year. And so I think authors need to realize that we're here to help each other, share some secrets, share what works, what doesn't work. I mean, and this is an industry that changes every day. And we have to stay up with it. We have to grow with it. You know, and I think I hear some authors tell me, you know, like, I mean, I don't have a problem when I'm sitting at a Comic-Con and the table next to me is authors. And hey, well, I appreciate you, Mr. Reader, for stopping by my table. I know you're not into paranormal, mystery, suspense, but hey, these fellows over here have some great stories. You should check them out as well.
I agree 100%. We absolutely need to support each other as a community.
Yeah, and I think there's some of that just, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
I was at Atlanta Comic-Con, we were sitting beside a guy and he just, you know, just refused to, I would refer people to him. If they didn't like my books, that's fine. Not everybody's into, you know, paranormal or mystery or suspense. Some people, you know, read a biography. Some people like country and westerns. Some people like, you know, nonfiction history. So I just, you know, or romance. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all have our own taste, and the same goes with movies. And, but, you know, I would point them right toward it, and I try to talk with them. But I was in one of them situations for 3 days in Atlanta, and I told my wife, I said, it's kind of sad, you know, that he thinks I'm his enemy, and I'm not. You know, but when he said, hey, do you have any ones? I'm like, sure, got plenty. You know, do you have any bags I could borrow? Sure, I got plenty. You know, I go prepared. It's like my wife, I'm anal about certain things. So
very cool. Okay, what are the other rules?
There's 6 rules, and I don't have them off the top of my head, but because I have like a little cheat sheet that I go with. So maybe we can talk about some of them in the next episode if you like.
Absolutely.
I can
dig absolutely. The next episode is rapid fire questions. Can't wait to see how that goes.
Oh no.
Yep. Forewarning. Okay. Steve, how do people find you? What is the best way for your fans to find you?
Social media. I have a website, you know, www.stevealtier.com.
Okay.
But social media is probably a great place to find me. I'm on just about every platform I think that's out there. I've recently touched on Twitter, or not Twitter, but TikTok.
Ooh.
So I'm going down that path. I know a few authors that I met out in Dallas were telling me that you should try it, you know, see what works. You know, I'm not going to be one of them girls on there dancing around and trying to get some followers. So, because nobody wants to see me dance, that's for sure. You know?
I don't know. That could go viral. Just throwing that out there. That could be a whole viral sensation there.
Hey, look at that old guy dancing there. You know, yeah, okay.
That's awesome. So what is your social media handles?
I'm author Steve Altier on Facebook, author Steve Altier on, and it's another thing I learned, you're an author. So promote that you're an author. It's not Steve Altier Books. It's not Steve Altier, the writer. I'm an author. Author Steve Altier, I try to use on all of my platforms to make it simple for everyone to find me. That's my biggest thing, just sticking with that. But I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, all of those that I can think of. And
very cool. Awesome. Well, it has been wonderful having you on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, it's you know, quite the honor.
Oh, thank you. Okay, guys, this has been Drinking with Authors. I've been your host, Erica Lance. My co-host has been
J.M. Paquette.
Yay! And our guest has been Steve Altier, and we will see you guys next time.